Welcome to this digital camera magazine video tutorial. In this tutorial what we're going to do is show you how to introduce motion blur to a picture just to give the impression of action. Now although the picture here has the two horses obviously at full pelt running down the racecourse towards the finish line, the image being distracted from, or the main focus is slightly distracted by the background. You've got the cars being parked, you've got the woman with the blue and white umbrella, you've got the trees in the background, and obviously all of the grass of the track. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the magic extractor tool to extract the horses from the image, and then we're going to use a motion blur on the background just to give that element of action and motion and movement. So to get started, go down to your background layer, drag it over to your new layer icon and drop to create your background copy layer. We're now going to extract the horses using the magic extractor tool. So if you go out to image and then magic extractor, and this will launch the Photoshop Elements magic extractor feature, and it has keynotes across the top which will just tell you exactly what you need to be doing. Basically, you start off by using the foreground extractor tool to select all of the objects you want to keep in your selection. Then you use the background extractor tool to just select all of the areas, the grass and the trees and the sky. Then you do a preview just to check it, and then you can click OK, and then that'll extract all of the elements you don't want and create a layer within Photoshop ready for the next part. So with our foreground brush tool selected, we're just going to zoom in onto the back of the horse, then reselect our foreground brush tool, and then what we want to do is just very quickly just use that brush tool to select all of the colour areas of the horse that we want to keep, and obviously the jockey. Now using this tool I found that by just going around the outside edges of the subject generally gets a much better extraction for quite complex selections like this, or extractions where you've got loads of different colours involved and you've got lots of detail with the horse's mane, all the different colours of the jockey's outfit and all the different colours in the background. There'd be a lot of similarity there for Photoshop to try and determine what it should and shouldn't be extracting. So this takes a little bit of time. And then once you've selected one of the horses, just use the move tool, click on it once, and then you can just drag the image across and continue the selection. Okay, we've now got both of the horses selected with our foreground brush tool. What you can do is, if you've got the straps and things which are slightly different in colour, make sure that you've got those into your selection. Now select your background brush tool, and we'll just zoom back out there by using Control minus or Apple minus, and what we want to do is just select the sky, the trees, woman with the umbrella and the cars, and all of the elements in the foreground that we don't want. If you've got quite a lot of similar colour between your subject and the background, make sure that you detail around it quite well. In this particular circumstance it's quite good just to use the zoom in tool, and then again, as you did previously with the foreground brush tool, use the background brush tool just to very roughly draw around the outline of the horse. Really just getting all of those areas into the extraction, and also pay special attention. You've got these areas in between the two horses and you need to get those selected. Okay, we've now got all of those areas that we want, either with a foreground or background brush tool. All we need to do now is we click the preview. Photoshop will do its magic and basically take out all of the areas, hopefully, that we don't want, which it's done perfectly. You might want to, if I zoom in here, you'll see that just around the jockey's head here we've got a little bit of information that we don't really want. So if I click on the background brush tool and just select those little areas that are still in our selection that I don't want, and then click preview again, it'll go back through and start to, or just take those small areas back out. If you're happy with that, just click OK, and you'll see now our background copy layer has our horses with the extraction. If we now zoom in, we can then just use the usual eraser tool just to tidy up the selection that has been made. You'll see bits and pieces like part of the car was still in the selection, just around the horse, and you get a few little shards coming out, fringing and things like that. And I find it easier actually to do it within Photoshop itself rather than using the tools within the Magic Extractor. It gives you just a little bit more leeway to play around and seems to be a little more accurate. With the eraser, just make sure that you've got a very slight feather on your brush tool that you're using. It just helps with the blending in when you apply the motion blur effect. Just finish off around the tail, and we'll leave it there. Obviously, you want to be quite exact with this. The better the extraction of the horses or your subject matter, the better the final image is actually going to look. So we're just switching on our background layer again, and again we're just going to duplicate that so we can come back and have a look at it after we've finished. Now what we want to do is apply the motion blur effect. So if you go to Filter and Blur and Motion Blur, make sure that you've got background copy 2 selected, zoom out on the selection, and make sure you've got the preview icon radio button clicked, and then you can see the effects of your motion blur as you adjust the distance. So if we just increase that up to about 50, and you can really start to see the effect of the motion blur. And what we're trying to get is almost a panning effect on the image. Want to increase it too much, if you push it a little bit too far, you'll start to see some sort of ghosting of the horses. But we can probably go up to about 50, and that's quite nice. It's just taken the distraction of the background away. If we click OK, and that applies our motion blur effect to the image. If we just go back up to background copy, merge that with the second background copy, and then just compare the results of before and after, and you can really see the effect that that has had on the image. You've got that full action and excitement of the races.